Welcome back to SuperAthlete Radio, where I'm super excited to bring in friend and mentor Joe Sena. Joe is the founder of Spartan Race, the founder of Death Race, a multiple-time New York Times best-selling author. Highly recommend all of his books. Before all that, he started a successful pool cleaning business in New York City with over 700 customers. He literally has gone from the king of queens business-wise to the king of obstacle course racing. And in this episode today, we're going to talk all things mental toughness, the power of consistency and routine, and things we can do every day to get better. Really excited. Let's do this. We want to welcome Joe to the podcast. Mr. Sena, how are you today?
Awesome. I am so happy to be alive. How are you?
Happy to be alive. Obstacles make me better. How are you, Mr. Silva?
Good.
Obstacles make us stronger, right? It's manufacturing a little adversity in our lives. We become better. We build something called obstacle immunity.
I love that. What is obstacle immunity for you?
So it's the ability to just deal with anything that comes your way. When I think about why I'm able to just brush things off, I think it's because at a young age, I owned a business, in my preteens, and everything that could go wrong does go wrong in a business. And so at a very young age, the same way a child learns how to play piano or do math, I learned how to deal with obstacles. Not being able to make payroll, customers leaving for a competitor, the job I was doing being off, like whatever it was, I think I learned how to deal with obstacles at a very young age and built what I call obstacle immunity.
Yeah, and that's very inspiring. I know I spoke with you briefly last year during the pandemic and everything was going crazy and everybody's businesses were tanking, and you've come back stronger than ever. What do you even say to that? And I'm sure you have 4 kids, right?
We have 4 children, and we're definitely not doing it perfect. We're doing our best. We're pushing hard in their direction, throwing obstacles in their way, making their lives difficult whenever we can. Although I could have done much more, I still regret I didn't do enough.
Every parent says that.
Yeah, it's never enough. Well, I think the mistakes I made, which I'm trying to fix now, are that at a very young age, when I think about our first child, I think a lot of parents make this mistake. I was really focused on going skiing, let's say on Saturday, because we were part of a ski club, or we were going to an obstacle race, or whatever the thing was that we were doing. And so I would organize everything at night for the family. In the morning, we would make sure we were up early and everything was packed and ready to go, because we wanted to be super efficient. We wanted to avoid having meltdowns and problems out on the ski course, or and we ended up getting a lot of ski runs in, right? We achieved that for the day. But the mistake I think we made was actually we should have purposely hid their ski boots and then had a whole meltdown in the house, and we should have been late, and then it would have been embarrassing with their friends and their coach. We should have actually thrown obstacles in their direction and our own direction. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I would change if I had to do it again. There's a story about Michael Phelps that his coach knew that this guy was going to be, one of the best, if not the best. And the only thing that would get in his way was this inability to deal with, left punches, that, things he didn't expect, black swan events. And so what the coach did, the rumor has it, was that he would purposely lose Michael Phelps' duffel bag when they were traveling. He would purposely screw up his airline tickets. He would purposely break his goggles before a competition, so that Phelps built obstacle immunity. And so when it really mattered, when he was going for gold, if something was to fail, it would be no big deal.
And there was a circumstance too where the water got in the goggles too.
And he had probably practiced it, right? That's I think what we're talking about.
Well, I'm really excited to have you on. On our last episode, we kind of went deep on the Gracie family and how they kind of became the kings of jiu-jitsu and what they did with what they brought to the table with mixed martial arts. And one of the things, it was two brothers who had this plan to basically start this giant crew of fighters. And one of the things they would do to test their kids' mettle was they would bounce them up and down. And if the boys could handle that, then they would toss them up in the air. And if they could handle that, then they would just start throwing them back and forth to each other. There's this great image in Hickson Gracie's book of it's like they're throwing a football of like a 2-year-old in the air. But it made me think of you when we did that. I was like, who can we have on here that would beat that in terms of helping kids develop mettle and toughness? And you're the guy that definitely came up. So I guess my question for you on that is, do you have any things that immediately come to mind or stories in that sense in terms of what you did with your kids that helped them develop a certain level of toughness? I read that story that you did with Charlie when he was 2 in the Christmas presents, which I thought was fantastic. But does anything immediately come to mind there?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where I was going to go, where Charlie, we decided to put his Christmas presents at the top of the mountain on our farm in Vermont, which is a good mile in waist deep snow. And he had his little feety pajamas on, and his brothers and sisters got their presents at the base of the Christmas tree. But Charlie had to, huff and puff for 45 minutes and get to the top of the mountain in a breezy, snowy, cold day. And I could think of 100 things like that where we made them swim, or, Jack, his older brother, ran the Boston Marathon when he was 8 years old. And so then I signed him up for a 50K right away. And he was taking a pee during the 50K, which is not abnormal because he was out there for 10 hours. And he somehow stumbled upon a bunch of nettles, which will sting you for, a good, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And again, he wasn't getting shot at, right? He wasn't on the front lines in the Ukraine-Russia war. He just had some nettles in his privates, but in the middle of a 50K. But you can think of 100 examples where we asked them to do what was possible, but not normal. And I had a wrestling coach, yesterday. My buddy is the coach at Stanford University, a coach named Rob Cole. And every year we do this death camp for kids on the farm. And so we were talking about what we're going to do this summer. And I said, I ordered a bunch of 100-pound punching bags. He said, why'd you do that? I said, I'm going to have the kids carry them up and down the mountain. And he was like, that just sounds ridiculous. That sounds miserable. And it's really no big deal. I mean, if you've lived on the farm and you've gone up and down the mountain 1,000 times like I have, it's really no big deal to grab 100 pounds and go up and down the mountain, but it's not normal. And so I think we just have to look in the mirror as parents and just say, is normal where we're supposed to be? Because normal today is so damn soft. It's so different than normal for most of our species' existence on this planet. I mean, not too long ago, when Roosevelt was president, you could look this up. There's 2 young children that their father, an 8 and a 10-year-old, their father asked them to saddle up from their home in Oklahoma and ride horseback by themselves to Washington, D.C. While he was on the train. He was going to meet them there at President Roosevelt's office in the White House. And they saddled up, 8 and 10 years old, and they rode from Oklahoma to Washington, D.C. And now we're afraid to have our kids go outside and play on the sidewalk. You know what I mean? So you really got to question normal.
Right. And I know there's like a natural human inclination. You've been talking about this in the book, where we sometimes go back into safety and go back into comfort. And I find even kids do that when it's the foods they don't want to eat that's unfamiliar to them, or saying no constantly when they're 2 years old and they're terrible. How do you get them out of saying no? Because I know in the book you even mentioned, you had some kids calling their parents like, Mom, this is hell. Why'd you bring me to death camp? But then they come out on the other side and they get to brag about death camp.
A lot of people don't know this. I didn't know this. The human brain, our brain, Doesn't matter what country, what size, its shape, what color we are, our brain avoids discomfort at all costs. The brain requires an enormous amount of energy, and it feels threatened when we ask our body and our mind to do things that are going to require energy or be scary or whatever it is. So the brain, more than sex, drugs, rock and roll, food, the brain wants to avoid discomfort. So you wake up in the morning, for example, and you have the greatest intentions to work out, but your brain asks you to check your phone, to make coffee, to do whatever to avoid the discomfort of actually going to the gym. You don't even know you're doing it. And that's what's kept us alive as a species as long as it has on the planet, because we don't freeze to death. We don't fall off a cliff, right? We don't get eaten by a lion. It is constantly protecting us. That's the child saying, I don't want to eat this food. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go out in the rain. That's just their brain going into protective mode. The way to fix it is the parent. We have to fix it. We have to say, well, then you won't eat. Well, then you won't come with us, right? Then you won't whatever. And you have to be willing as a parent to face those consequences. Maybe a screaming child, maybe a kid that doesn't get in the car and go on the trip with you. And after a while, the kid falls in line. But because we cater, it's our own weakness. We don't want the discomfort of the upset child. Because we cater to the child's every whim, every desire, it makes it worse, not better. And normal, with every passing generation, becomes softer and easier and less stressful and more unhealthy.
Absolutely.
And then with your kids, so my boys are 14 and 11. And I got something real quick that's, I think, a perfect example of that on the death camp, is that they're coming back again this year. And when I brought it up, it was like a no way. It's what they communicated to me. But then immediately when we would talk about a piece of it, they would get all excited. Like they would run from the other side of the house. Like if I asked them something from a different room or something. So just this idea of, I guess that's your whole business, but once you break through that comfort, there's just such a bigger sense of fulfillment on what you can accomplish because your limits get stretched. But the question I was going to ask you is that I read something where you mentioned that once Jack turned 13, you were going to give him more autonomy in terms of how to go about the Sena way. And have you done that with your teenagers, or have you still been on their ass a little bit, or what?
I'm always on their ass.
Okay.
And I shouldn't be. I should just let them fail. I'm working through my own human issues like we just described. I think when I think about our youngest, who gets the least amount of attention from us, just because she's last in line, she's the most capable. She is a little badass. We could drop her off in Moscow and she would take out Putin if we asked her to in the next 2 weeks. Like, she is tough as nails, complete survivor, doesn't need anything. So we have to be careful as parents. We tend to overparent, even if we write books about it and we get on podcasts about it, we just, we lean that way.
Mm-hmm. How much of that do you think she has naturally, or you just inbred in her through your parenting style?
I think she's definitely got some of that self-sufficiency genetically, but can you think of a child that, had to survive on their own that wouldn't? Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, we all would. We'd figure it out. And so we all need to have our kids just figure it out more on their own and accept the consequences.
Yeah. That's how you learn. Definitely. And how important do you think, because you describe your wife as being very loving, very about family, but she comes from a family of cops, and you're a city slicker from Queens, with a family kind of growing up and knowing how it's like rough. How much of that do you think is important to have parents who are on the same page? And do you ever have situations where she's like, oh, you're probably going too far, It's
pretty much every day I'm going too far. Every day for 20 years of our marriage, if she was on right now, I'm going too far all the time, and she's not going far enough. So, so that's just our everyday existence, and I can't really blame her, and hopefully she doesn't blame me, because there's a great saying, right? A mom will raise a boy and a girl. A dad will raise a man and a woman. And so we're naturally a dad, not in all cases, but most cases, a dad's just going to lean more towards you've got to be a survivor. And a mom's going to lean more towards I got to protect you. And so that's just the way they're wired. That's the way, we've been on the planet for 5 million years. You can't blame a mom or a dad for being wired that way. Now, when I was growing up, my mom was tougher. My dad was, my parents got divorced. My dad was more giving to my sister and I, and like bent the rules. We could stay up late. We could eat junk food with my dad. With my mom, it was like hardcore. She was all business. So you don't always get that, but most of us do it that way.
Yeah. The last episode, we actually talked about like raising super athletes and what some of these parents have in common. Whether you look at Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan's family, the Gracie family, and we saw some like common threads with, even though the parents, have the same values, but even though they have different styles of like going about it and different personality types, I think that's what keeps them like bound. Do you find that has the same?
Yeah, well, you definitely have to be on the same page on, the big things, the big strategy. But I'm very maniacal around, like, there's tremendous power in doing something every day, like 7 days a week. It's incredibly annoying. It's exhausting. It doesn't make sense. But every day, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, you do Mandarin, and before you know it, you're completely fluent. And you're taking a national speech competition and somehow taking top 2 in the country because every day you did 15 or 30 minutes of Mandarin, or you work out 15 or 30, and then all of a sudden you're really good at your sport. So, but it's exhausting, and both parents have to be bought into that. And you don't necessarily see quick gains. So you don't even know why you're doing it, right? When everybody's screaming in the house to go get your computer out and get your Mandarin, whatever it may be. But I've been thinking about it a lot recently. If you don't do that, you end up normal. You end up regular. And regular and normal is probably a bit overweight, probably a bit depressed, probably maybe didn't get into the school they want. Go down the list of what regular and normal is, and who the hell wants to be regular and normal? You're shooting. We should all be shooting for like a little better than normal.
Absolutely.
And then if you were going to start, let's say, like a Spartan school, what would that look like in terms of curriculum? If I understand, I mean, of course, movement and fitness is a huge part of what you do. The business, I think, is underrated in terms of how amazing you are in that aspect. And then the Mandarin piece. But like, if you were going to have like a Spartan school that brought in all kinds of kids from wherever it is, all kinds of personality types, all kinds of backgrounds, how would you, what would that look like?
I think somebody opened their jewelry box. That would be my dream. My dream would be to have a Spartan school. And it's funny, we've got 15 kids in from Uzbekistan. I was having dinner with them last night, and the coach who brought the kids has a school of 1,300 kids in Uzbekistan. I might send my kids over there this summer for a week or so. But he was showing me pictures of the school and the training and the chess and the combat sports. And it was just like, oh my God, that would be my dream, would be to have, 1,000 kids that I was training. It would start early in the morning for sure. I'd want to wire the kids' brains to waking up early and being productive. It would definitely start with cold water. Just get the game going. We'd be over-indexing on chess for sure. Everybody would have to speak 2 languages. We would go through all, the classical training of, the math, the science, the language, history, etc. And lots of problem solving. Entrepreneurship. We all have to be great salespeople. We have to sell our ideas to our friends and family. There'd be a spiritual component for sure. And lights would be out at 8 p.m. and everybody would be sleeping.
Sounds like you've thought about this.
Oh my God. My dream would be to have a school.
I want to go back to you talking about normal, right? So there's a lot of normal things that enter our households and they aren't good. Whether it's Red 40, it's the junk food we let in our house and let our kids eat, it's the technology and, sometimes the overabundance of that. What are some things that's like, this is not entering my household? There's a hard stop. And it doesn't have to be just food, but certain
well, we're gonna work out every day as a family, right? We're definitely gonna practice another language. We're in a constant battle to eradicate any processed food or junk food from the house. Not easy because I have 5 other people living with me. 6 now. We got a kind of an adopted wrestling son that's living with us, and stuff oozes into the house. Shoes have to come off when you walk in. I think it's ridiculous. You can't take your friggin' shoes off. And that's it. Really. I mean, I like lights out early. I wake everybody up early. Hard stop on like just real processed food. Like there's no McDonald's ever in the house. No fast food. You're not going to see 99% of the stuff in the snack aisles in the grocery store is not going to be in the house. Yeah.
Did everybody up with a mission statement in the morning, or where did this mission statement come from?
Missions, like if you run a business, right, you've got to, what do you stand for? For us, it's to change 100 million lives. So if your family doesn't know why we're doing all this, then they're going to have a tough time adhering to the challenges you're asking them to take on. So, look, for us, we're not going to necessarily win. We're not going to be the best, but we never quit, right? We work hard, and that's who we are, and that's who we stand for, and we're good people. And go down the list.
One question is, so for people that are listening to this, and whether it's for themselves and or they have kids, what are some specific things that they can do to make their kids tougher? It seems like you have resonated with wrestling very much with your family, along with, of course, the business itself in terms of obstacle course racing. And you mentioned chess. It sounds like a big one cognitively, but like for people who are like kind of overwhelmed of like, all right, my kid's going to fight me on doing anything hard. What are maybe a couple specific things that's like, all right, we're going to do this together every day?
Well, I mean, listen, what are you going to do, the parent that's listening or watching this, to make yourself tougher? Are you going to take a cold shower every day? Are you going to wake up early every day? Are you going to sweat every day? Because if you're not doing it, you can't expect your kid to do it, right? Are you eating a salad every day for dinner? Like, list out the things you're willing to do, and then make sure your significant other is willing to do it. And then that's it. Take it or leave it. If you want to live in our house, this is what we do. And it's not always comfortable, and it's not always ice cream, but this is what we do, and this is who we are. And when you're 18, you can go do it a different way if you want. And that's it.
Amen.
That's the program.
That's right.
That's amazing. Well, I appreciate your time, Mr. Sena. Hopefully we will see you at the old barn in the mountain in Vermont in June. I know we'll be up there. And congrats on getting the family to Florida.
I will see you in June on the farm. Bring the Kleenex. See you later. Goodbye.
Good. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye.